Cool, cool. Well, welcome to anybody who is already listening. I'm gonna probably just take a second here to get some people on the feed ready to go. Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited about this. I've never done a post-show recap. So a few minutes ago, the newest inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame were announced. I guess they are the inductees elect. So give me a second here to get this going. Can't wait to talk to all y'all. But yeah, no, we just had a good Dilem-Monday episode. Nice just recap of in general what was going on. But yeah, while people are joining into the feed, welcome again. Can't wait to go over and pull up the list. And it's a pretty decent list, I gotta tell you. If you want to join in the live stream, send me a message, comment in the chat, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Let me know. I can see your comments. And yeah, in a few moments, I'll get this going and ready to just kind of give you my views of what's going on. Depending on how long we're going, we might get some other guests. Yeah. So hope y'all are doing well. Happy Monday. We're here in another week, which is great. Yeah. Yeah. So if you have yet to look for yourself at the current list, I highly recommend go check out the you can go Google and find the complete list, both the performer category and all the other categories. Some surprising people that it's crazy that they weren't already in. That's pretty nuts on my end, but we'll get into that in a moment. So yeah, no, pretty exciting. Hope that you guys are enjoying your evening, and we'll get started in a moment. Just finishing the last of these group shares. Yeah. That should be just about everybody. Okay. So yeah, good evening, everybody. Good evening. So yes, so on American Idol, about 30 minutes ago, the newest inductees, the class of 2026 for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, were announced. Pretty excited about that. And it's an exciting list, a very diverse list, but still pretty, that rock and roll energy is there on display. And I guess that's the place maybe to start with. What are we calling rock and roll? That's been the biggest debate and the biggest argument in the last decade and a half of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as a more diverse group of artists of different origins have started to get inducted. What are we defining as rock and roll? I know the hall itself defines rock and roll as like youth music, um, stuff that's trending, stuff that speaks to the young and the young at heart. I can go with that. I can get with that. And I think that's at its basis. And I'm going to count anything that kind of follows through with that same spirit that came from that spirit of rock and roll, things that were influenced by rock and roll, influences on rock and roll, kind of lived beside rock and roll. And I think the list that came out very much embodies that. So how about I get into that? And then yeah, as you guys join in, feel free to leave your comments on Facebook, leave your comments on YouTube. But yeah, so in the performer category this year, Phil Collins, Billy Idol, Iron Maiden, Joy Division / New Order, Oasis, Sade, Luther Vandross, and the Wu-Tang Clan. In the early influence category, Miss Celia Cruz, Fela Kuti, Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, Graham Parsons. in the award for musical excellence this year, Linda Creed, Arif Mardin, Jimmy Miller, Rick Rubin, and in the non-performer category, we have Mr. Ed Sullivan. So all over the board, we have people from all over the walks of the musical and rock and roll world getting inducted for whether it be their influence on rock and roll, how they helped twist and turn what we call rock and roll to be rock and roll, or if they just rocked out themselves. So I guess I'll just go down the list here and give you my little tidbits of what I know, what I think. I will say overall, it seems like the majority of the people that I wanted to get in, for the most part, did get in, and I'm really excited about that. Um, including to start the first one alphabetically there, Mr. Phil Collins. Though South Park did say fuck Phil Collins, I personally can't agree with that. But we're talking about one of the greatest we're talking about one of the great stories of a guy who was in a band who went on to front, not just front his own band, but then have his own solo career. And it doesn't usually happen. It's not the drummer that usually happens with. Let's get real here. That's not the guy who typically is the one who's having that happen. And Phil Collins, almost by accident, ends up becoming going from the drummer of Genesis to, after the departure of his buddy Peter Gabriel there, he ends up being the lead singer of Genesis. And they tried auditioning plenty of other people, but the one guy who could always do it and always worked out being able to sing these songs in the same way that Peter did was Phil Collins. They're one of those bands that both singers had very similar voices, which made for these really rich harmonies. He was always fun and entertaining. We don't talk enough about the fact that Phil Collins was an incredible drummer. Obviously, In the Air Tonight, one of the greatest Phils ever. Everyone knows it. When you can sing a drum solo, you've done something right. And by God, he did it. He absolutely did it. And the solo records he put out between, again, Against All Odds, Face Value, No Suit Required, or No Jacket Required, excuse me. This dude had a killer solo career, a career that was possibly even bigger than the pop era of Genesis, bigger than any of his contemporaries in Genesis. And I love Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel is one of my favorite musicians of all time. But if we're talking just sheer pop knowledge and just sheer pop appeal, Phil Collins was the king of that band. Shout out Mike and the Mechanics. And The Living Years, the one song that they had. Say it loud and say it clear. You can whisper as loud as you hear. But that's pretty neat. I think that's enough on the Phil Collins front. Billy Idol has been eligible since 2007. This dude was one of the biggest hit makers of the 80s. He started off in a band called Generation X. He was, the end of that first wave of punk rock. He lived on Long Island as a child. Famous for being, big tough guy, British guy. Lived on Long Island. But hit covers like Moni Moni, White Wedding. This dude embodied rock and roll. He looked rock and roll. He was everything you expected out of a rock and roller. And the fact that it took this long for him to get inducted is crazy. I don't know if Steven Stevens is getting inducted next to him. He was his longtime guitarist. And it's a real shame if he doesn't get acknowledged, or at least is the guy who inducts him. When you think about those riffs that accompany those songs, Dancing with Myself, Again, Moni Moni. They didn't write Moni Moni. And by the way, Tommy James and the Shondells, I would love to see them finally get into the Hall. Hit makers of the 60s, and the fact that their songs were still getting covered, decades later by multiple groups and artists who have now been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think it says something. Iron Maiden. When you think about heavy metal, especially classic heavy metal, you're thinking Judas Priest. You're thinking on the thrash side, bands like Metallica. Obviously, early on, you're thinking about Black Sabbath. But the band that really embodied it, Iron Maiden. When you think, let's just think about iconography across genres. Eddie, Iron Maiden's, monstrous mascot. That is one of the that T-shirt. You know it when you see it. You know the cover to an Iron Maiden album. They were iconic. Their music speaks volumes while still being heavy metal. It was always melodic. We're talking about, the between the harmony guitars, the incredible bass playing. It's thunderous. It's raucous. It's rock and roll. You want to talk about how rock and roll spread into all this big tree of all these other genres. Iron Maiden is one of the ultimate examples of that. At this point, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has gone beyond just being rock and roll. Hell, if it was just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the only people that you should have had inducted are like Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, and that's straight up rock and roll. But it grew. How do you not include the Beatles? But how do you also not include the Temptations? How do you not include James Brown? And how do you not regard the blues and folk music? It's all part of this rock and roll thing. So, Iron Maiden, one of the great examples of how that tree grew, how you have the influences of the British invasion blues that came into it. You have metal is full of the blues. It's in there. Those riffs come from that. Maiden, even you can tell there's some jazz influence in there. It's rhythmic. It gets your heart pounding. Steve Jordan, the famous drummer, he explained that, it's rock and roll for a reason. Chuck, in his quote, Chuck Berry was, he had, his part, the da 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 da, that was the rock, but the swing that went behind it, that's the roll is from jazz. And all of these artists, you can find that. You can find that rhythm and blues. Joy Division and New Order. So they're getting inducted as one group, kind of like how the Faces and the Small Faces were inducted together. And it makes sense. It was the same core of individuals. When you think about the tragedy and the tragic figure that was Ian Curtis and the melancholy, darkness that came from the poetry of those two albums that Joy Division put out. They were more than just the famous t-shirt. I have the record literally right here. Again, iconography. Everyone owns that t-shirt. Everyone knows that t-shirt. And then the music that came from that album. Immensely important music. It sounded like nobody else. What Peter Hook was doing on Rickenbacker, just like that one, on those first two records. Insanity. It never felt so good to feel terrible. It never felt so cathartic than listening to Joy Division. And then obviously Ian Curtis takes his own life. And instead of just saying, we're done, like a phoenix from the ashes, as cliche as it was, came New Order, a proper and perfect name for what they were doing. The rise of the synthesizers are coming up, but instead of shooing it away, instead of getting away from it, they embraced it. They said, where does this fit in with us? The early and late 70s, you had the rise of some of these German bands, the genre called krautrock, that groups like Kraftwerk, Neu, Tangerine Dream, they came into being. And that influence spread over into Europe, and these bands are hearing this for the first time. At the same time, punk rock is growing. Bands like the Sex Pistols and the Clash are coming into the public consciousness. It's speaking to an England at the time that was kind of in crisis. Economically speaking, these kids were this is the first generation of rock and rollers that were born post-war. Not right at the end of the war, not right after the war, but these guys, these are the children of the 50s and even in the early 60s. And these are the children of the Cold War. And this isn't the same optimism that the Flower Children had. And Joy Division and New Order, both those groups spoke to that. And as the 80s are coming through, our side of the pond, the economic swing up, and England still in financial crisis at that point, the years of Margaret Thatcher. This band spoke to a different part of your soul. How a band that was, let's look at the track listing here from the first record. Days of Sighs, songs like that, to then having songs like Blue Monday, Age of Consent, Bizarre Love Triangle. These guys are writing dance hits. You're feeling sad, but you're dancing it off. And to think of all the bands that they went on to influence and all the movements, the goth movements, and eventually emo, the things that they went on to influence. But they're making dance music. You're feeling good while feeling terrible, but in a totally different kind of catharsis. They're playing at the nightclubs, not in gritty, clubs. And they're also not doing the major tour thing to the same degree that some artists were. In an era that had such excess on MTV, the counterpoint, you have New Order. So pretty insane. I got the pleasure of seeing Oasis for their reunion tour, a tour that I think a lot of people never thought would ever come to be. No one thought that the Gallagher brothers were going to be able to get their together and be on stage again. But when you talk about the rock and roll of the late 90s and the early 2000s, when you think of the entire Britpop movement, they were the defining band. Yeah, I get that there was Blur. I get that you had these other bands, but Oasis were the dominant group. And the discography that came with it. Hell, if they just wrote Wonderwall, they would have written an all-time classic. But that entire Morning Glory album has anthems. They wrote rock and roll stadium anthems. And when you're in that crowd, you're hearing these songs. When you're part of that, you understand why they were important. You're getting why they're getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I hope that they do actually show up. It would be great to see them, telling the world why they were so great. And they deserve to show off a little bit. They have an ego for a reason. They deserve it. And the whole group too. Bonehead. I hope Zach Starkey gets inducted with them. They've had a few drummers, but that Beatle influence is clear, obviously, in the Oasis records. And people have always complained, oh, they sound just like the Beatles. When did that become a problem? Why is sounding like the Beatles a bad thing? People who insult Oasis because they sounded like the Beatles, so you don't like the Beatles? You think bands shouldn't sound like arguably the greatest band of all time? My favorite band of all time? And if that's what you're thinking, that's your opinion. I think you're wrong, but that's why there's different tastes in music and why not one band gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mentioned earlier the influence of jazz and R&B and how that is a part of rock and roll, and Sade, the entire group, embody that. For people who really weren't, they weren't trained in the same classical manner as some of their contemporaries. They didn't have the same experience coming up, the academic experience, even perhaps some of their contemporaries had. They just said, we want to make music, we want to get together and create beauty. And first of all, having a front woman like that, you're already exemplifying beauty. And once the smoky soul that came out of her mouth and the music that went behind it, I want to know what percentage of the world's population is here in existence today because of those Sade records. I have to imagine a large one of a certain age demographic that exists because of those records. And in the same regard, and I'm gonna come out with a hot take here. Luther Vandross might be the greatest singer who ever lived. Luther, as a singer, from one singer looking on to it, he had all of the skills of a great singer. And I think personally, the hardest kind of singing there is in the world is backup singing. When you're able to combine your voice and multiple voices to sound like one unit, that is the greatest challenge. Luther was able to do that with as beautiful of a voice as he had, the power that he had. When it was time to be part of the choir, when it was time to be part of the group, Luther did it better than anybody. But he's also the guy who was able to arrange all of these parts. He was the guy that had the vision for what the stage should look like and sound like. He wrote songs, he arranged songs, he wrote jingles. Jingles are not easy to write. You need to write a jingle. You need to be able to, in a minimal space, in a little amount of time, have something that people remember. And then the solo records. Is there a more devastatingly beautiful song than Here and Now? Never Too Much? Dances with My Father? Oh my God, this dude was... Any bit of pain that he had, he never let on to it in his records. And you watch footage of this man performing, as big as he got at times in his life, that man could move. And you watch the audience members of those Luther Vandross concerts. Go watch the clips of Luther Vandross on Oprah. When you look at the way there's a clip, and if you get the chance to watch Never Too Much documentary that came out on HBO, do it. Do yourself that favor. They have a clip of Luther on Oprah, and he starts singing to her, and it was like the life left her. She was blushing. She was feeling everything everywhere. Let's put it that way. And every woman in that room was feeling everything everywhere. Hell, I think every dude in that room was feeling everything everywhere. The power that man had. He was a magician. And I think he might be the greatest singer who ever lived. And the Hall of Fame did the right thing by acknowledging that. He absolutely deserved the acknowledgement that he got with this award. And this is so not an oversight. And to have not included him up to this point is crazy. We find, Whitney's in the Hall of Fame. Whitney's cousin Dionne Warwick is in the Hall of Fame. They're in. Luther's got to be. Now, probably the one that with the performer category that the traditionalists, let's put it, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame community and the rock and roll world. You want to talk about hip hop icons. You want to talk about embodying the energy of youth, the energy of rock and roll in a completely different genre. There are few hip hop groups that did that to the same degree as the Wu-Tang Clan. Once again, first of all, the iconography, you know it. You know the phrases, you know the sayings, you know the titles. Even if you don't know the songs. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to with. Wu-Tang is for the children. Protect your neck. They're ingrained in the public consciousness. You had a collection of some of the best rappers and MCs of their era in this moment where the genre is kind of shifting from something a little bit silly, a little bit funny, to something with a lot of grit, something with some edge, something with some commentary. They had something to say. I said last year, after the last year inductees were announced, that if the Hall of Fame was moving in the direction it is, which is the whole family tree, rock and roll and everything that came from it, it would have been a shame to not include the Wu-Tang Clan. And you can fight me on it, you can argue me on it, say all you want. In my view, the Wu-Tang Clan have their rightful place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And at this point, you know, they're joining a highly esteemed group of other hip hop artists who are in. You have Tupac Shakur, you have the Notorious B.I.G., Public Enemy, the Beastie Boys. We're talking about Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Run DMC. We're now seeing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is showing off the whole story of hip hop and how it did branch off from R&B and soul and funk with the same kind of social commentary as the great folk artists and the great protest musicians. You can see the same basis in some of the anger and some of the angst of a group like the MC5 in some of these groups. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is telling that story. And if this is the direction it's going in, tell it right. Tell it to its fullest. Tell the truth. Absolutely here for it. So those are the regular performer categories. The awards for musical excellence. Celia Cruz, the Cuban singer. She's the first, I believe, Afro-Cuban woman being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there's ground being broken there. When we're talking about singers, and I know I've always tried to take this into heart, and I know plenty of other singers will be there with me. Our job is to take in all of the influences. Our job as singers are to get everything that we can from the tool belt that's been provided to us from those who came before us. And again, if your job is to tell the full story, a performer and an incredible singer like Celia Cruz, I think, is part of that. If you're trying to get the entire mosaic, if you're trying to find every color in the palette that got us from point A to point B, she's a great choice. And these, by the way, all the people I'm mentioning from this point on, they were all voted in by a separate committee, not the regular voting committee. These guys all get chosen. They don't go through the same voting process that the performers do. Fela Kuti. He got nominated a few years back, and actually in the fan vote did rather decently. I mentioned briefly on the regular Dilem-Monday show earlier in the evening. This was a guy who was friends both with the insanity that was Ginger Baker and also Paul McCartney. When you think about that, everyone knows Ginger Baker was a nut job. Everyone knows that he was a crazy madman with a temper like no one else. But he was also friends with Paul McCartney. And he and Paul and Ginger Baker, there are some stories that Paul tells. Apparently Fela had the let's put it mildly, the best stuff around. And there was one night where Paul's like, I don't want to go in, I don't want to do anything. And Fela had him, he's like, you're gonna take a hit. And Paul McCartney, who was experienced in the world of the devil's lettuce, of the funny stuff, he was out of his mind apparently. And Fela was one of these, he was an individual, let's put it that way. And again, that's part of rock and roll. It's standing out in a crowd. It's what makes you different than your contemporaries. And you want to talk rock and roll energy? Fela Kuti had it. The African rhythms and the beats that he threw in on top of the Americanized jazz, and just the political anguish and anger that went into his music, the social consciousness that went into his music. What isn't rock and roll about that? Queen Latifah. In the last few years, we've seen the influence category kind of getting used to make sure that the story of women in hip hop is told. They were, especially in the beginning days of hip hop and that second phase, they were just, they don't deserve to be overlooked. And Queen Latifah is an icon, not just in music. In fact, I would argue that she has an even bigger presence in the world of movies, television. She's an incredible actress. She's got passion, her ability to play musicians. She's done biographical roles in her life. She knows the story about what came before her. She knows the importance of the women and the men who came before her. And she took that with her. But instead of some others might, instead of taking that with negativity, instead of being resentful, and I keep saying and I apologize, I know it's like a terrible vocal stim. Instead of resentment, Queen Latifah always has seemed to want to rise above. She seems like someone who wants to have outreach as opposed to shut herself in. And she is a storyteller in that regard. She's not a gatekeeper. That's part of this story. That's part of this. I'm going to be completely honest. In the 30 minutes between the end of Dilem-Monday and this special edition, I'm now realizing I had heard some of these songs by MC Light, and it would be dumb for me to go too far into an artist I really don't know too well. But if you want my initial thoughts on just what I've now heard, it's angry, it's punky. It wasn't trying to be cute by any means of the imagination. And kind of in the same regard, we have, Joan Jett got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a performer for doing kind of the same thing, just in a different genre. And we're talking about rock and roll, which has always been rebellious. It's always had angst and anger. It was, it started off with the music of teenagers. What says angst more than Teenage Rebellion and the music that, accompanies that. And one of my favorite people on this entire list, especially, and I will say my favorite of the early influence inductees this year, the cosmic cowboy himself, Graham Parsons. Graham Parsons never fit in anywhere. He was from a wealthy family. His family owned, like, I want to say 30 or 40% of the citrus orchards in Florida. His father died early on. He had an immense inheritance. His mother remarried to an extremely wealthy man in New Orleans, or not New Orleans, but in Louisiana itself. He goes to Harvard to study divinity. He and this is during the midst of the 1960s, the beginnings of psychedelia. He's in a psychedelic band called the International Submarine Band. But his true love always was country music, classic country music. And that, you want to talk about rebels, you want to talk about outlaws. Those guys were his heroes. And he brought that into rock and roll. All of his buddies in California, or the people that came to California after he dropped out of Harvard, he brought that cowboy music with him. So you think about the careers of Emmylou Harris. He joins the Byrds briefly for one of, if not their greatest album, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And it pisses off McGuinn that here's this handsome son of a bitch who was always the front man in a band, kind of trying to steal his thunder. And he was doing it good, to the point he couldn't stay there. He helped make the country rock movement that eventually would give birth to the Eagles, careers, women like Emmylou Harris, the entire Laurel Canyon scene after it moved out of just being a folk scene. Linda Ronstadt, Michael Nesmith, who was of the Monkees, and by the way, let's get the Monkees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. 4 incredibly talented performers, musicians, and songwriters in their own right, who, whether or not they were put together or started a band themselves, it doesn't matter. Let the music that they perform speak for itself. Graham Parsons, though, he's the center point of this. He's the starting point. He's the flash point. And another tragically young figure who went out way too soon through misadventure. But you want to listen to some of the most magnificent country rock that ever was. His album, The Grievous Angel, it's special. The duets that he and Emmylou did on classic songs like Love Hurts. Oh, heartbreaking. Beautiful. Emmylou Harris, I've always said, kind of looks the way she sounded, and it's beauty. And by the way, also would love to get Emmylou Harris into the Hall of Fame. She deserves to be in. She's in the Country Music Hall of Fame. And also, it's kind of crazy to think that Graham Parsons is now getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before he got inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. So, Nashville, how about you listen for once to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about who should be getting in there? Your boy Graham deserves his plaque in the hall. But one of the cool, and I've heard stories of people who personally had met him and knew him, and he was kind of, he had demons, but a lot of the great rock and rollers have demons. That's part of this. It's not something that should be glorified by any means. I don't think there's something cool about dying young. It's just the unfortunate side effect that comes from it. Some people have too much to give on this earth to be around too long. Some people let it get to their heads. And it's a shame that individuals let their bodies get taken over by that. The demons of the mind that take over the demons of the body. And if you want to hear about one of the wildest post-mortem stories in rock and roll history, go look up what happened to his body afterwards, and his friends being the good pals that they were. And if you want to hear a great video about this, the YouTuber Caitlin Doherty, if you're into the world of postmortem, some very dark material presented in a easy to digest way, dare I say even humorous or post-humorous, I guess. Check it out. She did a phenomenal episode about the death and the desert cremation of Graham Parsons and Joshua Tree. Fun fact, you can stay in the hotel room that Graham Parsons died in. You can go to the spot that his... Okay, might as well tell it, because it's a freaking awesome story. I'll real quick go into it. Graham Parsons had attended a funeral of one of the members of the Byrds. And he's like, it was a Catholic funeral, the rite of Christian burial, all the humdrum that comes with that. And he turned to his buddies and was like, if I die, don't ever, this is not happening. I want you to take my body, I want you to cremate me and put me into Joshua Tree, my favorite place in the world. And when he died, his buddies stole his body from the airport, brought him into a car, and they at least tried to do just that. They covered his body in gasoline and liquor and lit Graham up, but as I learned from the Caitlin Doherty video, that's not a very hot flame. It doesn't work. You're just going to get charred Graham Parsons. And they got caught, but his buddies did follow his post-mortem plans. His friends got fined. They did not go to jail. It's pretty badass, if you ask me. It's a true testament of friendship there. But enough about the death and postmortem of Graham Parsons. He belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Belongs in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Linda Creed, this is a tragic story. She was one of the great Philadelphia songwriters, artists like Teddy Pendergrass, the Stylistics, the Spinners, Rubber Band Man, and on yourself for the Rubber Band Man, the Spinners. She wrote some of those incredible pop tunes. TSO, we talk about, TSOP, the Sound of Philadelphia. She didn't write that one, but she helped develop that sound. A sound that, by the way, Luther Vandross took onto. A sound that David Bowie caught onto. Forgot to mention that with Luther. The Young American album, Young Americans by David Bowie, the song and the album, Luther Vandross arranged all the vocals on it. That was him. David Bowie wanted to make an American white boy plastic soul record. And everyone in Philadelphia said, the man you need. is Luther Vandross. Speaking of Man I Need, if Olivia Dean is not the person inducting or performing at the induction of Sade, I'm going to throw something. I'm going to be mad. But Linda Creed, in a city that was filled with the Luther Vandrosses of the world, the Gamble and Huffs of the world, she made her place in it, and she died tragically young at the age of 37, I believe, of breast cancer, which is a miserable and mean disease. And what she did in her time, though, is remarkable in the face of such adversity, that she was able to do that. That's something else. Arif Mardin, let me pull up the discography of the groups that he worked with, because it's impressive. Here we go. Arif Mardin. So, one of these guys that he had a brilliant pop music mind because he saw talent as it was and didn't try to put anyone into a box. He acknowledged what the talent was and said, I'm going to work with it. Short list here: The Rascals, Queen, Melissa Manchester, John Prine, The Bee Gees, Hall & Oates, Anita Baker, Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack, Bette Midler, Shaka Khan, Laura Nyro, Ringo Starr, Carly Simon, Phil Collins, Norah Jones. That's a broad range. This is not a guy who was stuck in a box and never left his artist to be stuck in a box. Grammy Award winner. He produced the Saturday Night Fever record for RSO with the Bee Gees. Producer of the Year in 1976. Nominated in 82 for multiple awards. Won for Bebop Medley in 1984. Won for Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings. Yeah, we're talking huge hits. We are talking massive pop hit maker. That's crazy. That's absolutely wild, this dude. So again, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's job isn't just to acknowledge the famous people. It's to make sure that the legacies of others that we didn't think about necessarily, or that were beloved but kind of fell through the cracks in the public consciousness, that their legacies get preserved, to make sure that generations afterwards acknowledge them. I remember a few years ago, for one of the Dilem-Monday Rock and Roll Hall of Fame shows, I went into a deep dive about the OJs. And I was like, how did the OJs get into the Hall of Fame? Then you start reading all their hits. It's like, oh, by the way, the OJs at Philadelphia Sound. Stunned. I was stunned. So there's a place for that. Jimmy Miller was one of the great English producers. So anything Steve Winwood ever touched, this man was a part of. From Traffic, the Mr. Fantasy record, which is one of my favorite records of all time. The quiet hopefulness that record carries. One of the first guitar riffs I ever learned. Traffic, Blind Faith with him and Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker and Rick Gretsch, Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. That little scene. This dude was able to take the best of the American sound, the best of the English sound, not stick it anywhere. Again, another guy who didn't get stuck in a box. Really cool. Really, really, really cool. That's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is doing its job. Another guy who crossed boundaries in the world of being a producer, despite having in his own commentary no musical talent. Rick Rubin has an ear. He started off in the hip hop world, kind of the in between of the punk world and the hip hop world, with the Beastie Boys. And this white boy ends up in the world of hip hop, but then also kind of in the world of heavy metal. When you think about the fact that there was one guy who produced for the Beastie Boys, Johnny Cash, and like Paul McCartney and Neil Diamond. That's a mix. That's a that's a wide range. Tom Petty. People just knew that this guy has instincts. He just knows what flows and what's good and how to make you the best version and to restore yourself to the best version of who you are. He worked with AC/DC. None of these guys sound the same. And in a lot of cases, Rick Rubin allowed guys to get back to the heart and the core of where they were as an artist. That's the job of a producer. A producer doesn't need to be the guy making the arrangements. The producer isn't necessarily the guy making the beats. The producer is the guy in the studio who makes the artist do the best work that they can be and be the best versions of themselves. And the guy who lets an artist see out their vision to the best that they can. That's the beauty of Rick Rubin. He's an eccentric. He's a character. He's an icon. Rock and roll is I keep mentioning that word, icon, and iconography. Rock and roll has always been visual art. Rock and roll has always been about appearances and standing out. Rick Rubin, he certainly did. The final inductee, the non-performer, and this is crazy that this guy wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. How is Ed Sullivan not already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Ed Sullivan, in general, just in popular culture, changed the world. This was a pretty normal guy. He came out of that first generation of television that, while it was still so just like him, stiff shoulders, and he knew enough to know that I might not get it. This isn't my taste. And he learned over time and he got better and he made mistakes, but he evolved. And his show went beyond the circus acts and the dancing dogs. And he was able to be like, yo. First of all, the Broadway shows, I talked about it briefly on the regular Dilem-Monday episode. He brought Broadway into people's homes. Not everyone was able to travel to New York to go see shows. But here were the casts of the biggest shows on Broadway every Sunday on your TV. And then as this rock and roll thing starts to happen, he didn't get it at first, but he knew that other people did. He was willing and brave enough to have guys like Elvis Presley to start with his hips shaking. And yes, famously, they made him the next time that Elvis went on, he was like, you're only going to film him from the waist up. And okay, all right. It's whatever. But he kind of learned, and he censored the Rolling Stones. The Doors rebelled against him. But know what? He gave them a platform. He gave the Beatles a platform. He gave these bands and these singers a platform pretty much until he died. He transformed. And as you watch the clips of the Ed Sullivan Show, you see this guy who warmed up to the position he was in. And he was the king. Every Sunday night, you got that. By the way, also, let's not discount the comedians. He had people who would eventually be considered some of the edgiest comedians still doing their lounge act. Before they were not as refined as they would become, but Ed Sullivan was always willing to take a chance. Kind of like Max Yasgur. Yeah, a bunch of young people want to have a nice time. Yeah, I'll give them the farm. Ed Sullivan's Woodstock was his show. In that theater, that celebrated and hallowed theater, that it's changed hands, different faces have hosted and had shows in there, but it's still the Ed Sullivan Theater for a reason. The face of rock and roll and popular music changed because of the acts that performed on that stage. And without him, it doesn't happen. So I've been talking for about an hour. If you tuned in tonight, I really appreciate it. I'm really excited. I love the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for what it is and what it becomes and how it's evolved. And I think I'm one of the products of the people who changed and learned because of it. And I have to thank it for, keeping me from being an obnoxious and arrogant young teenager who thought rock and roll purism. And oh, know what? Right. Oh my God. As I'm thinking of wrapping up. Hello, Zach.
Oh, hey.
Welcome.
I figured I'd stop by.
Yeah. Hello. Did you get a chance to read who got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I did. You're just really quiet. Just give me one moment. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I was all sad. I was going to have done it all by I was like, oh, I did it. I was all alone. I was all by myself. Oh. How was your evening?
I am so unprepared.
I don't ever expect you to be. I think it's half the fun.
I wish I could hear you. It's like a little. I hear you. Let me see. I did notice some of the folks you sent me that got in. Let's see.
Did we lose you? Are you there? We have a fun screenshot of you on the screen.
Ruben deserves nothing.
Okay, there we go. You're back. Okay, who deserves nothing?
I wish I could fucking. Where's my keys? Hold on. I'm trying to get my headphones so I can actually hear you.
Oh, that would help. That would help sometimes. We are experiencing signal difficulties, but that's okay. He has escaped the apartment.
Okay, so if I do this,
I can hear you nice and clear.
I can hear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? We could hear you a few seconds ago. Where'd you go?
That being said,
there we go.
I'm here. Am I gone?
No, you're
I
back.
had to run outside.
You're front, you're back, you're whole you.
I'm side to side, left to right, up and down.
Upside down. Boy, you turn me inside out. round and round. Hell yeah! So, what are your thoughts? Give us the Zach thoughts on this year's batch of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. Hello, hello. Is it
Wait, so
me?
if I back out, it looks like I'm not in the show, so I have to like stay here. So
Okay,
I'm like,
so
is there a way you could pull up a screenshot on the screen of like the inductees
I can absolutely do that.
so I can like look
I
because
should have had that going the entire
the entire time.
show. Yeah. And I'm realizing, yeah, after I went through it, like you actually caught me like at the end of me going through everybody.
Oh, right on.
Oh,
Yeah,
uh,
I was like, I have to get in I have to say hi at least to get in. I've been like rushing around trying to get a bunch of stuff going done.
all right, let's pull up
Let's see.
open image in a new tab. New tab. Um share screen. Share screen. Tab. Boom. Okay, so here's our visual.
Cool. This is what we needed. Let's see. I didn't know that Queen Latifah wrote music. That was my first thought.
A lot of people don't.
Had no clue.
So that I'm that's I'm guessing a non-endorsement.
No, I mean not endorsing it. I can't speak on her because I didn't know. I love her as a actress, but I had no idea she wrote music. I am very hyped about the whole list here. It looks like everybody deserves it. I'm surprised some of these people are already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which kind of says a lot about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame itself. Because like
Yeah.
Phil Collins should already be there. What are we doing?
It's insane. Again, when you think about we were talking about at the beginning of the I was talking about beginning of the broadcast, a guy who was never the front man, who leaves the drum kit and the security of that to go to the
Right,
front and then start his own solo career where, by the way, he played most of his own tracks. He would have other
right.
guitarists and whatnot, but he's playing all the keys and the bass and the drums on all of his stuff and singing.
Yeah,
That takes
legend,
courage
huge legend. Yeah,
and talent.
yeah. Just like being on stage up there, right? Like, oh, I can't even imagine being on stage by myself. I just,
Yeah, no, he was a beast.
doing all that. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. See, how do you feel about Rick Rubin?
I'm absolutely here for Rick Rubin. I think we just I was just mentioning how he's an individual with such incredible instincts.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what genre, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Rick Rubin wants his artists to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused why people say he's a slacker and he like sleeps on his mixes. Is it like a recent? I don't know anything about him besides that he's like produced some of the most legendary records of all time. So I don't know.
He himself is not technically gifted. He doesn't really know what the right words for things are,
It
but
doesn't matter.
exactly, he's the proof in that.
Yeah, as long as like what to do. Like I don't know. Like I couldn't tell you the names of like a lot of things in video, but I know the shoe. I know it looks good. Does it matter like what the technical terms are? Because half of that stuff is just nerdy anyway. It doesn't Nobody knows what that stuff means
What some
beyond.
people do
I
in
don't know.
improvising with music itself, he's able to do on the fly and says, "I know that this sounds good. I know that this
Yeah,
feels good.
right.
Make this happen."
It was so funny. I didn't even realize that Rick Rubin was getting in today, and I was listening to the Black Sabbath 13 album today.
Yeah, another group that
And
yeah,
he produced that. Yeah,
yeah, he
that
said,
album.
"I want you guys to act like you did as 20-year-olds."
Yeah, and they did. That album's fucking furious. It's so good.
He always did, he whenever, he did great work with, don't get me wrong, with young artists, but the legacy artists that he got to work with throughout his career,
Yeah.
he brought them new life. And I think I think the ultimate example of that is what he did with Johnny Cash, a guy who's
Oh,
kind of went to the wayside and said,
mhm.
"No, you get one more chance at this.
Yeah,
you're a goddamn fucking legend, and
yeah.
before you go out, we're gonna make sure that everyone knows that Cash is king."
No, for real. That
And
did he produce her? Is that what he did?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. I had no idea. I didn't even know he produced Johnny Cash. So that's like crazy.
the fact that
That's wild.
he was able to get, you know, a rockabilly singer playing a Nine Inch Nails song to
Yeah.
the fact that Nine Inch Nails now covers their own song because they realized what Johnny Cash did with it was perfected.
Yeah.
They perfected it.
Absolutely, you did.
And
I love when that happens.
and what a testament, you know, the song was written certainly from a different perspective, but when framed through the lens of a man on his deathbed, because he was dead within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
His wife June had just died, the love of his life, who he fought and struggled and overcame his demons to be
Mhm.
with. When you look at the lyrical content of that song and put it into the context of his life, Rick Rubin knew how to get that out of him.
Right.
And how remarkable. That's why a guy like Rick Rubin should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and now is getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Should have been the whole time. Should have been there the whole time. I don't understand.
Yeah, no,
He's the only I literally only know him. The only producer I know is Rick Rubin. Like
he taught everybody how to not be pretentious,
mhm.
but be knowledgeable.
Right.
So I think that's one of the best. It's hard to say the best choices on this list because they didn't screw it up.
No, not this year. I'm seeing Iron Maiden finally.
Yeah,
I'm
definitive.
seeing Oasis. I'm like, I'm trying to think of like I don't know some of these names though. Not that I'm like super knowledgeable about this stuff, but let me see. Oh, Fela Kuti. Do you know who Fela Kuti is?
A nut job. He
A
was
complete.
a wackadoodle.
I'm screaming that Fela Kuti is getting recognition. Holy shit, that's insanity. That was like a big OK in the Night Crew inspiration. Fela Kuti.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so funny. He's getting recognition. I never thought.
And they tried to he got nominated one year, and then this year they put him in. They're like, we're gonna use that committee to get this guy, this nut job, into the hall.
Well deserved.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna listen to him tonight. I like forgot about him to be honest.
I don't want to have nightmares and weird dreams tonight, so I'm not going to. But I might in the morning.
You know who gives me weird nightmares? Robert Johnson.
That yeah. Free man spoke to the devil, traded his soul to play 3 guitar parts at the same time. If I was selling my soul, I would choose other things personally to do with that. But
probably not music, yeah.
But in the words of the youth, pop off, king.
Yeah. That's the way.
I
don't know the other artists though. I'm afraid. Like I guess a Billy Joel, but like
Billy Idol.
Oh, Billy Idol. I said Billy. I'm like indifferent.
Nice day to start again.
He's an 80s guy.
Oh yeah, but like he also wasn't gross about it.
No.
He wasn't hair metal.
No. He was just I don't know, he's just a pop guy in the 80s.
Yeah, but
he was
with attitude. Like
he's pop with the attitude.
I mean,
yeah. No, I love Billy. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I don't like Billy. Yeah. That's not what I'm trying to say. I was just like, I don't care if he got it in or not.
Could you arguably say that the beginning of pop punk begins with Billy Idol?
I could see that. I don't know. Again, it's another genre I'm not very knowledgeable about beyond like weirdness in the 90s and early 2000s, but
Like, because
Yeah,
there's a direct. I think there's a direct connection between the Green Days and the Blink 182s of the world,
Oh,
and
absolutely. The
pop.
fangirling.
Yeah, pop. Pop mentality. Taking the the best things about. Wait, let's make a song that people want to listen to while also having that punk mentality at the same time.
Right.
Attitude
Yeah.
and flair and
Yeah.
flash.
No, my mom loved Billy Idol.
He was
But
just cool.
like that guy and like Jim Morrison.
Yeah, there that's and it's weird when you think about it, and that's why I actually like this direction of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's a tree.
Mhm.
You're seeing, yeah, no, it's not just these straight up rock and rollers you're of the 60s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's a full story that gets told.
We have to start recognizing newer artists. That's all. Yeah, like
That
so these guys are like, yeah.
yeah, and that is, and there were some very good nominees this year,
Mhm.
and some of them, a few of the ones that I really enjoyed didn't make it, but the ones
Mhm.
I really wanted, they for the most part did.
That list
Um,
is pretty solid. Yeah.
as a reminder to the um our audience here of people who were nominated. The full list of nominees for this year were the Black Crowes, Jeff Buckley, Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Melissa Etheridge, Ms. Lauryn Hill, Billy
Mhm.
Idol, In Excess, Iron Maiden, Joy Division, New Order, New Edition, Oasis, Pink, Sade, Shakira, Luther Vandross, and Wu Tang Clan.
Well, fucking Pink. Why? What does she do that's even different than some of the other queens?
Yeah, she.
She's
I
just
guess
I
like
can't
she had attitude and like she
sold
I
out.
would like and I would here's the thing. I wouldn't have been mad if she got inducted. I wasn't rooting for her.
Yeah.
And I could see it. Like there's the attitude there. And like same thing like Melissa Etheridge, you know what she's always been a
Yeah.
rock and roller.
That's a good choice.
And I think she will get in. I think both
Well, yeah, they will.
and even know what? I can see it with like I get where they're going with Shakira
I
because
get where they go. Where they yeah.
you have
Go ahead.
Tina Turner in.
Yeah.
She's like a Latin Tina Turner.
Yeah. She's a queen.
Yeah. As long
Um
as Mariah Carey stays out, I don't care how many records she sold. I don't care what records she broke with that. Keep her out of the Hall of Fame. This is the third year in a row she's been snubbed.
I'm so tired of it.
Ugh. I'm
Rock and roll Hall of Fame my ass, huh?
yeah. I'm sad about the Black Crows. I like
What did they do though? What were their like? Why would they get? Why should they get in?
I
Like,
so they their ability that kind of that blues revival in the late 80s early 90s
mhm.
it was a little it had a little bit of that, it had a little taste of classic punk rock in there, it had it had all these little it had all of the good little bits and crunchies of the classic rock serial represented in
Yep,
the format of two brothers fighting. And
fair.
I'm
Yeah,
sad that we did not get to see the Gallagher brothers and the Robinson brothers get inducted the same year.
I was waiting for you to say something like after that. I'm like, well, the normal transition would have been that. Um,
And when you think about it, both bands broke up on the same tour together.
yeah, it's so funny.
They should have traded a brother.
Yeah,
We'll take Liam. You take Rich. Rich, you go to Oasis. Liam, you go to the Black Crows. We'll all get along now. But now, you know what? They're all getting along with each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're on tour right now.
Yeah.
The Black Crowes, I'm pretty sure they're on tour.
And then the other one I'm disappointed didn't get in is In
Mm.
Excess. I really,
Yeah.
really love In Excess. I think Michael Hutchins, he was the 80s Jim Morrison.
Okay.
He was cool. The true children of Australia.
Mhm.
They that that record Kick is so good.
Right.
And they were they were a massive seller in the 80s. I mean, I wasn't there, but everyone I speak to, like, they were huge. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's see
Oh,
where we go next. Well, we're gonna go with the 90s and 2000s people. I'm excited for that in like 10 years.
That's great when you think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna start seeing like Blink-182, Green Day,
Yeah,
fucking Jack White. Like,
Green Day's in, the White Stripes are in. But
oh,
yeah,
are
no,
they? Huh.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Deservingly.
Who are three? And I'll tell you if they're already in. Who are three people off the
Yeah.
top of your head you don't think are in that you would like to see in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Oh God, that's a tough one because like
Yeah.
I don't know, like I like because I feel like they're all in it because I don't know who's in it. Like, shit, three people that aren't in the rock that might be.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough off the cuff. You know how like you get asked like what are your favorite bands and suddenly you know no
You're
bands.
Like,
I
yeah,
want
no,
to see some subgenres get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not like some like I want to see like Sleep get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for what they did for doom metal. You know, like I want to see like
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I want to see like Cradle of Filth be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for what they did for death metal. You know, like what I mean? Like
You want you want the story told. Yeah. Okay. If
you know what I mean?
If you were the only person voting, that's it. Give me three people if you were the only person voting that you would put in tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay, that's even better. Yeah, so I would definitely say Cradle of Filth deserves to be in the Rock and Roll of Fame for like the mainstream success they brought to the genre and like how they've like pushed the genre forward. Not like people usually don't like them because of course they're like they're very theatrical. Let's see who else. Some of the 90s, the early 2000s were like Simple Plan and stuff like those bands.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking specifically is it Simple Plan? I think the one with like Wicked Fat Dude that did like 1989.
Bowling for Soup.
Bowling for Soup, yeah. Like those bands, like Blink-182 deserves to be in the Rock and Roll of Fame. I don't care.
I think Blink should be in the next like of the newer, which is crazy when
like,
you think about they're like ready to get in.
No matter they are ready to get in. They're like late. Oh, is Tool in the Rock and Roll of Fame?
Tool is not, but again, I see. Even I'm not a giant Tool fan, but like when you think about they were they were the grandchildren of prog rock.
Yeah, and this is where I'm thinking like these aren't bands I necessarily am a straightforward fan of. Like I am, but I'm saying like you don't have to be a fan, but you have to understand what they've done for the genre. Is Britney Spears in the Rock and Roll of Fame?
No, what? At this point, we're talking. She was a she was a giant amongst her contemporaries. She was
right. Yeah.
So I was.
We're gonna put Mariah fucking Carey in there and all those other dweebs.
I would much rather see Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera in over Mariah. Sorry.
I think they've done more for the scene than Shakira. Mariah did.
Actually,
Shakira, absolutely.
I first of all, she's cute. She's still cute. She's still cute.
Yeah, have you seen her performances lately?
Oh,
she's still rock like insanity.
Oh my God. Yeah, and you know what? That's where I will give Pink some credit there. She does trapeze artistry on stage.
No, I like don't care because like just fucking sing, dude. Like you're not a circus. Just fucking sing. Like I get it. That's cool. I'm proud of you. As I'm wearing a Kiss shirt, I'm literally wearing a Kiss shirt saying just fucking sing. Yeah, I don't know. Her music is just so like it was so dope in the 90s and she like had attitude and her music was unique and it was doing something different. And then she just put out that song and it was all over after that. She just started putting out generic. I might as well be listening to Katy Perry.
Well, yeah. So hey, Katy Perry was the first artist after Michael. She was the artist that beat Michael Jackson's record for the most #1 singles from one record.
God, that sucks.
She beat Thriller.
I don't understand. She's not talented. Makes me so mad.
Teenage Dream was a good album.
She just yells. She's great. She's a great blues singer. Hear her sing jazz.
She's got that. She can get smoke. Amy Winehouse should be in.
Oh, Amy Winehouse 100% should be in.
She really was a rock and roller, like true to heart, you know.
Yeah, I don't even like her music, and she should be in.
That girl, she had that girl group kind of thing going to her. You think about artists like the Shirelles, you think about artists like Dusty Springfield. She had that.
I'm trying to think of other like random artists.
No doubt.
Yeah. Although I don't think Gwen Stefani deserves anything ever again. So
her choices in husbands are questionable.
Speaking of which,
oh yeah,
waiting for Lana Del Rey.
Yeah. I was talking. What the hell? Oh my god! Why can't I think her ex-husband? Oh my god! What? He was from a Bush, right?
I don't know. Lana's ex?
No, and know what? When you have a song that can, I can't believe I'm saying this, and I'm annoyed by the song, but when you have a song that becomes an anthem decades after it came out, to the degree that Creed has in the last 2 or 3 years,
yeah, Creed should be in there too.
And I'm gonna make a hot take. Everyone's least favorite band in the world has sold.
Don't say it.
Think about how many records those have sold.
That doesn't matter. What's their influence on the fucking industry? I guess
they wrote a bunch of great hits that the bros get down to.
I love that we don't have to say the name of the band.
Chat, who are we talking about?
Yeah, if we're gonna talk about freaking that band, you might as well just say Imagine Dragons deserves to be in the Rock and Roll of Fame. We're gonna talk about that nonsense. Like, what are the credentials to get into the Rock and Roll of Fame? Just influence?
I don't know how I got lost for a second, but no, screw Imagine Dragons. I'm sorry. Though, know what? The crazy thing is, when you think about it, the little kids, and now it's crazy, they're not even little anymore. Like the kids when I was like teaching camp, that was their band. And
well, that's because it was pushed down their throats.
Well, yeah, and it's the only thing I will ever give them, that in 15 years' time, when they're like eligible, they were the one band.
You know why?
Because it was shoved down their throats.
No, I mean, you know why it was shoved down their throats. You even know why Imagine Dragons. You want to talk about like fucking bands that they were like, oh, they're like the artist is a product placement. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they were like what do you call it? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I feel you. Okay, want to know a band that, despite product placement-y ish, I still think that they had a great discography, and I think they're probably eligible in the next few years. Coldplay.
I think Coldplay deserves it.
Their early stuff through Viva La Vida, like, come on, that record came out when I was in like right before middle school, just starting middle school, and it was the album.
Yeah, no, Clocks blew my mind. When Clocks got dropped, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like, and then it was sick. But no, that band is not, they're definitely not like an industry plant, but Imagine Dragons is.
Yeah. No,
Imagine Dragons is literally an industry plant band.
You know, okay, another band that had an incredible beginning of their career, but then just turned. Ugh. Maroon 5. Songs About Jane is a great record. That
they got really bad.
And it's really sad what like they let themselves go.
Yeah.
With the addition of the hip hop artists that are in, how are we neglecting Snoop Dogg?
He doesn't deserve to be in there. But he had one good album. He's literally just a marketing guy. He had one good album, and guess what? That whole album was just like repeat. I'm a huge rap guy, so like you're talking to me. His entire album was placed. Dr. Dre just gave him some beats, like resampled beats. He threw it down, and then he like put out a bunch of like shit albums. And then he did that other thing that failed, and now he's just like a fucking MAGA, like despite his politics, you know what I mean? But like he just like put like he just
wants everyone to love him.
He's fake as shit.
No, when you think about Yeah, this is the guy that was on Death Row Records, and now he goes to the Olympics.
He was the child on Death Row Records too. He was like literally a child when he wrote his Doggy Style album.
Wait, it's that whole thing with Death Row. That was a moment in time.
He tried to turn Death Row Records into a cryptocurrency. Like literally, he tried to turn Death Row Records into an NFT. That was a thing that happened. So that's why I said fuck Snoop Dogg. He deserves nothing.
So can we all agree?
Yeah.
Suge Knight.
Huh? Suge Knight.
Fuck him.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think because I think Snoop Dogg is not. He's not going to be known for his music. He's going to be known for his personality.
Well, yeah. Then again, we now put Queen Latifah into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I don't know why. You know what we should? That's fucking bullshit. Because there's other art that. What was her name on Death Row Records? Who's a queen?
Lil Kim.
No. Well, yeah. I mean, at that point, yeah, Lil Kim.
She wasn't on Death Row.
I'm talking about the woman that was on Death Row. She had one album, and she did Afro Pop. No, give me one more. I'm so stupid, dude. The Lady of Rage.
Lady Rage?
The Lady of Rage. You want to talk about badass in the 90s who was like putting it, like she put out one album. She still does things, but
and not Ms. Lauryn Hill.
I'm indifferent about Miss Lauryn Hill. I've heard some things about her that she's kind of a diva. She's not very nice.
Yeah, no, and that affects things.
Yeah, it makes me not want to because cool, you deserve the award for like what you did, but also if you're like a bad person, I don't really want you to like be rewarded for your behavior.
I would rather put the Fugees in than just her.
Yeah.
The
Fugees.
Because put Wyclef Jean in the Hall of Fame. Why not?
That makes me wonder.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to call this podcast
sure.
Or this special edition for the evening. We've gone actually I've now done 2 full hour and a half shows tonight.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yes, Zach, thank you for coming on. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Just my butt. No, you can go to postfix.com, postfixmedia.com. Sorry. I don't really have anything to plug right now, actually. But after that last show, it had a million things to plug. I put out your video, so I still think people should watch the Corey the Dilemma video because it's sick. Songbird. That's about it for now. I'm trying to want to link up with me. I'm trying to get more gigs. I don't know. Postfixmedia.com. Hit me up.
Beautiful. Songbird is still out there. And yeah, when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction actually happens, we will do another recap for that. But with that in mind, thank you for joining us for this special edition of Dilem-Monday. We will see you next week.